Really briefly, can you speak to rumors that there is another Chinese balloon above Alaska or any other parts of U.S. territory that the U.S. shot down?
So I can confirm that the Department of Defense was tracking a high-altitude object over Alaska airspace in the last 24 hours. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. Out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of the Pentagon, President Biden ordered the military to down the object, and they did, and it came inside our territorial waters. Those waters right now are frozen, but inside territorial airspace and over territorial waters. Fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command took down the object within the last hour. Okay?
Can I just follow up, John, and thank you for that. That's really helpful. Can you give more details on the support that U.S. is providing to Turkey? Specifically, we understand that the USS George H.W. Bush is on standby. Can you update us on whether there's been any communications with Ankara on whether the ship will be any part of humanitarian efforts?
I think I updated as much as I could right now. What we're doing is what I put in my opening statement. You're right that there are naval assets that are in the Mediterranean and under the command of U.S. Naval Forces Europe. The commander of U.S. European Command has designated the commander of U.S. Naval Forces Europe as in charge of the operational coordination for military assets, and he is doing that. I cannot speak to any specific contributions by the aircraft carrier USS George H.W. Bush, but obviously there's lots of capabilities in the Mediterranean region that could be brought to bear. But we're working, and this is a really important point. We're working in lockstep with our Turkish counterparts here to make sure that what we're providing is what they need at the scale and the speed that they need, and not trying to overwhelm their system with unneeded material or unneeded capability. So there's, you talked about the Bush, but there's a lot of military capability on the continent under the European commander's authority that could be used. But again, we want to make sure that we're doing this appropriately through Turkish counterparts.
Another aircraft of some sort, airship, balloon, something was shot down today. Who owns it? What were the circumstances? Was the president directly involved in ordering this? And is wreckage being recovered?
Well, okay, so I'm going to try. Remind me if I forget something.
Okay.
Yes, the president absolutely was involved in this decision. He ordered it at the recommendation of Pentagon leaders. He wanted it taken down, and they did that. They did it using fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command. The Pentagon will have more to say about the details of this later on this afternoon. It's only just within the last hour. We're calling this an object because that's the best description we have right now. We do not know who owns it, whether it's state-owned or corporate-owned or privately owned. We just don't know. We don't know. As I said, state-owned. We don't know if it's state-owned. And we don't understand the full purpose. We don't have any information that would confirm a stated purpose for this object. We do expect to be able to recover the debris since it fell not only within our territorial space, but on what we believe is frozen water. So a recovery effort will be made, and we're hopeful that it'll be successful, and then we can learn a little bit more about it.
Was its appearance like the Chinese aircraft?
No, it was much smaller than the spy balloon that we took down last Saturday. The way it was described to me was roughly the size of a small car, as opposed to a payload that was like 2 or 3 buses size, right? So much smaller, and not of the same, no significant payload, if you will.
And lastly, is it now the policy of the United States that if unidentified aircraft are over U.S. territory, that it is likely the president will choose to shoot it down?
The president will always act in the best interest of our national security and in the safety and security of the American people. An update on U.S. efforts to respond and to help provide assistance to the people of Turkey and Syria in the wake of those devastating earthquakes. We are ramping up our assistance to these earthquakes that have now killed more than 20,000 people in Turkey and Syria, including, that we know of, at least 8 American citizens. Now, this is a terrible tragedy, obviously, and our hearts continue to go out to all those impacted. We remain in close contact with our Turkish allies at every level of government, including, of course, a phone call between President Biden and President Erdogan. Yesterday, we announced that the United States will provide $85 million in life-saving assistance to provide shelter to the displaced, as well as food, medicine, and other desperately needed aid. In Turkey, a USAID disaster assistance and response team is already on the ground, and 2 of our most highly trained urban search and rescue teams are conducting operations in support of Turkish rescue efforts in Adıyaman, one of the hardest hit areas inside the country. These teams have nearly 200 personnel combined between them, specialized equipment and canine support dogs as well. They have been able to expand their operational reach with the support of U.S. military Black Hawk helicopters. And because of the extensive damage to roads and to bridges, ground transportation, I think you can understand, is pretty challenging. They'll continue to run airlift operations from Incirlik, transporting rescue personnel to sites that they are most needed to conduct operations. The DART teams, as we call them, are also conducting structural damage assessments of many buildings and infrastructure. To date, they have been able to cover more than 630 sites across Adıyaman. In Syria, our humanitarian partners continue to urgently scale up response efforts to reach people in need. That work will include, or has included, chartered flights that are transporting essential medical supplies and teams distributing hot meals and other food. As of this morning, the United Nations and its partners successfully completed its 2nd cross-border humanitarian convoy into northwest Syria, and one of our humanitarian partners delivered 14 additional truckloads of supplies through the Bab al-Hawa crossing, totaling now 20 trucks of critical medicines, food, and water to people in need over the last 2 days. To underscore that U.S. sanctions will not prevent or prohibiting humanitarian assistance in Syria, yesterday, the Department of Treasury, I think you saw, issued a broad general license to provide additional authorizations for disaster relief assistance to the Syrian people. We already were able to deliver humanitarian assistance without this general license, but we wanted to underscore the importance of humanitarian aid getting in, and so the Treasury went ahead and issued this license as well. This license will be in effect for 6 months. U.S. humanitarian assistance is delivered directly to the Syrian people, no matter where they live. We are determined to do all that we can to help those affected by these earthquakes in the days, weeks, and months ahead, as required.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.